Sweet baby Jay. This changes everything. Hey everybody, welcome back to Kielbasa Corner, where today I have asked an AI model to create a recipe for the best spicy smoked sausage in the world. And here it is. So first, let me show you how I made it, and then we'll find out if this cyber sausage is the next evolution of tube meat or just meaty malware. Now let's get started. So we've got an all pork recipe today. And even though I'm a bit more of a mixed meatman, you can't really go wrong with an all pork sausage. So I've got a couple of pork shoulders here. And the first thing I need to do is get this off of the bone and cut up for the grinder. And everything is still slightly frozen and very firm, so that'll make for a nice clean grind. And I'm gonna be running this through a 4.5 millimeter plate. Just one pass.
Mr. Anderson.
Looks like we got a nice grind on that. So now I've just got to weigh up my grind, and then I will work up the spice bill. And this one is pretty busy. Now let's take a look at the spices for the world's best spicy sausage. And like I said, this one is very busy. We've got a ton of spices here. So let me go through these. I can barely fit them on the board. I will try to fit them on the screen, but everything will be down in the description of the video. So we're going to get started with the salt and the pink curing salt, number 1. That's your preservative that's going to keep your smoked sausage safe from harmful bacteria. I've got a little bit of brown sugar in this one. And now this is smoked paprika. I never really use smoked paprika in a smoked sausage because why? But it calls for smoked paprika. We're using smoked paprika. This is some mustard powder. And now I've got red chili flake. I've got cayenne pepper, black pepper. This is hot paprika. Over here I've got some ground coriander, some ground white pepper, some ground allspice, and for fresh ingredients I've got some onion, some fresh garlic, and a bunch of fresh thyme. And I did change the recipe slightly here because the recipe calls for dried thyme, and dried thyme has absolutely no place in my kitchen, so I'm using twice the amount of fresh thyme. I also changed the amount of cure because the recipe leaned toward the maximum amount of cure that you would want to use in this type of thing, and I like to scale that back a little bit, and it's still safe that way. And for my liquid, I've got some apple cider vinegar, and I do usually worry about putting acid into my meat at this stage because it can kind of break the meat down. But that is a small amount of vinegar, so hopefully it just adds a little bit of tartness and doesn't harm the texture at all. And the final ingredient that the recipe calls for, something that I can't disagree with at all, and that is some ice cold beer. And this is your classic pale ale. So I'm going to puree the fresh ingredients in some of the beer. Then I'll combine all the dry ingredients and we will mix this one up. Probably should have pureed that brown sugar as well. We'll get it mixed in regardless. So now I'm just going to start layering my ingredients in the mixer. Now we're gonna mix the heck out of this one. I got no binder in this recipe, so I'm gonna make doubly sure that I mix it long enough that it gets nice and shaggy looking and very sticky. I can really feel my meat stiffening up now. So it's probably close to ready. A little check, you can see the shaggy look to it. It's getting fairly sticky, but I'm gonna give this a little more time to get a little bit more protein extraction.
A few moments later.
I think that's just about as good as we're gonna do without using any binder.
There is no spoon.
Looks good. It does have a very nice aroma. So now, this goes into the refrigerator overnight to let that cure work its magic. And we'll be back here bright and early on another Sausage Sunday to crank this one out. Bright and early on a glorious Sausage Sunday, I've got my cured meat. I'm using natural hog casings today, and these have been soaked and rinsed inside and out. And those are 30mm casings, so I've got my 20mm stuffing horn. So now it is time to lock and load and crank out this digital dog. Welcome into the sausage closet. And now I just need to let these things hang here until those casings get nice and dry. Got that fan going underneath them. And once the casings get dried out, we're going to move these things out and into the smoker. And that should give me just about enough time to clean up my mess. Now I've moved these out and into the smoker, And I'm just going to continue to dry those casings out for a little bit. So I've got it set at 110 degrees, somewhere between 100 and 110 is fine. And I don't have smoke going yet, and I don't have water in the water pan. I'm just going to get those casings very dry right now, and that'll probably take about 30 minutes, at which point I will start the smoke and get some water down into the water pan. And I am going to be running apple wood on these today. Alright, these casings are nice and dry now, so I did get some water down into the water pan, and I have started the smoke. We'll get some good humid smoke in there for those casings to absorb. And my smoke schedule for today is going to be a simplified smoke schedule of 2 hours at 130 degrees Fahrenheit, followed by 2 hours at 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we're going to finish these guys off in a water bath. Oh yeah, look at that. Now I can tell by the color of these that they are now smoky enough that I can get them out of the smoker and into the hot water bath. Oh, those look good. Ooh, top that right off. Now let me get a temp probe down into one of these. Right down into the center. Put those in there. There we go. Everybody down in there. Now, the reason I'm finishing these in the water bath is that the heat transfer between water and air is vastly different, and it happens a lot quicker in water. And that's going to finish these sausages up very quickly and leave them nice and plump and juicy. You can finish them in the smoker by turning it up to 180 degrees. And then you cook those off to an internal temperature of about 152 to 155. But it can take hours to get there, and during that time, your sausage is going to continue to dry out a little bit. It still makes great sausage, it's just a little bit of a different sausage. Now in here, I think this will take about 15 to 20 minutes to finish these. Out there, last time I did it, 3.5 hours, I think. So, I'll keep an eye on this temperature, and it's going to happen quick, so I need to get my ice bath ready. There we go. And that was literally 5 minutes since I put those in. They started at 140, and now they're at 155, and I got to get them out of that hot water bath and into some cold water to stop any carryover cooking. And I did have that water bath set at 176 degrees Fahrenheit. Now just let them sit in here 10-15 minutes until they cool down all the way to the center. Oh yeah, that's a beauty right there. Nice and plump, feels very tender. I'm sure it's going to be nice and juicy. And I can show you the difference here between finishing these guys in a water bath like I did and finishing them out in the smoker. You can see here's one that I just finished in the smoker. And it is drier. You can see it's wrinkled a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. This thing cooks up just fine. This one's going to be a little bit more juicy. This one's going to have a little more concentrated flavor and a little meatierness. Is that a word? It's going to be a little more meaty in texture. And one benefit to these drier sausages like that is that these things are excellent to eat cold as well as hot. So either way you want to do it, it's going to work, and you're going to have some great sausage. Check them out. Those are some beautiful sausages. Now the last thing I'm going to do is just let them hang here over the fan until they're completely dried off, and then we can take one of these to the grill.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
there we go. This thing looks great, smells great, but it's still far too hot to try, so while that's cooling off a little bit, let's take a look inside of one of these at the grain. Looks perfect. Nice fat chunks in there. I can see some thyme and some pepper. It's got a little bit of an orange tint from the paprika. Nothing wrong there. And now we can finally give this one a try. Check out that mega bite. Not bad. Let's try that dressed up a little bit. That is very good. First off, it's got good smokiness. The fat content is a little heavy for me, but it's acceptable because pork shoulders do vary a little bit in fat content. And it's got a great snap from that natural casing. And I knew going in that those elements were going to be fine. I've made a lot of smoked sausages, so this experiment comes down to the flavor from the seasoning. And overall, it's great. I think what the AI has done here is picked the most widely used spices from some of the most common sausages and brought them all into the recipe to make a sausage that aligns with most people's preferences. And it wasn't wrong. This is a very good sausage. It's nice and peppery and garlicky, and the thyme plays a very nice role here. The salt content is just a little high for my taste, but it's on par with most commercial sausages that you get at your grocery store. My only issue with this is that I wouldn't consider this sausage to be spicy. Now, it might be to some people whose palate isn't tuned up to very spicy foods, but for me, it doesn't really put off any heat. It's heavily spiced, but very little heat. But it would just take a minor tweak in the cayenne pepper or the chili flake to bring this up to where it will be perfect for me. But it is a delicious sausage, and I've served this to a bunch of people and they were all very happy with it. So the AI is definitely capable of creating sausage recipes. But is it going to take over and run the sausage world? Possibly at the commercial level. But home sausage makers know that the beauty of making your own is that you get to craft your sausage to your taste. And until we all have implants, I really don't see that happening. Thanks for watching.